Yeah, whenever you're ready, I think we're all back.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. Oh, it looks like some people are still popping in. All right. John just posted another link for the slides. We'll be sending you all this information following the meeting. We hope that everyone had a seasoned conversation, and a juicy one at that. So now we're going to take 10 minutes, and there were 5 different groups to read out. So each group gets 2 minutes to read back your nuggets of what you took away from the conversation. So let's start with, let's go in numerical order. Group number 1, do you have a representative?
And that was Ivan,
John, okay, got it.
Marissa, and Shari.
Yeah, you want? I'll go ahead, except for the notes that I took are all scattered. We had one person who represented Shari, who represents an active group in Media, Pennsylvania, right? Pennsylvania.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then we had Ivan, who is, I don't believe, affiliated with an active group. And we had myself, who was affiliated with an active group that's now defunct. So it was an interesting mix that way. We were talking about some specific, let me stick to specifics. Shari talked about local solar initiatives to help get solar panels on houses in that area. I talked about an attempt to get a community garden going in our making one of our local community golf courses become a garden, and also starting a microgrid initiative within our community, which is also a solar thing. So for electricity, for sharing electricity within the neighborhood. We talked about how a lot of ways in which the CDC, the Design Council, could assist with maybe with webinars, with ways to interact with among the various transition town initiatives. Shari, what am I missing? You want to chime in with anything?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Marissa just deleted the part that was our themes worth sharing. But mostly, I think they had to do with collaborating more with local government, doing some mapping with Transition US. Oh, there it's back. Oh, good. Having Transition US do some kind of mapping of different initiatives so that we could mentor with people who have done different things that we wanted to do, like for example, permaculture design courses or something that where can we find them and all that sort of thing.
All right, one more takeaway.
Yeah. And also sharing what kind of qualities successful transition initiatives have in terms of how many people involved, different kind of mix of what kinds of people are in there and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, because different people have different skills. We were talking about trying to allow people to, each person to find their own way into transition activities based on the skills they have and the interests they have.
And also some people have more time than others.
Okay.
Great, thank you. That's great. All right, group number 2. Don, do you want to call them out?
Yeah, group number 2 was Jess Parfrey, Kat Vanderstraten, Mark Judeman, and Scott Brown.
I will be sharing some of the takeaways and themes that came up for group 2. So one of the big things that came up for folks was the need to elevate and lift up the inner resilience work. We talked about things like burnout, the need for mental health support and services. We were also kind of taking stock of existing networks with regards to professionals able to provide some of those services. We talked about connecting more with municipalities and cities. Folks mentioned some local efforts, for example, to transition to clean energy and just wanting support with that kind of work, especially if folks were in perhaps a politically antagonistic environment or climate, just the need for strategy support to keep local efforts alive and thriving. Also talked about wanting to bring more young people into the work, and really excited about the working group focused on transition ed and schools. Let's see, what else am I missing? Also the need to support folks doing a lot of this labor and work. Folks are often having a hard time making ends meet. So how do we support folks there? And let's see, also there was the mention of tech. So how do we address conflict? How do we make decisions? And how do we connect via platform, which is something that came up as well. And there was a lot of other really wonderful ideas and points that we put in our notes.
Thanks, Jessica. Or Jess. All right, great. Okay, Don, will you call out group 3?
Hi, yeah, I'll do it, unless someone wants to help. We had Linda and Shelley and Leslie and Christina. Linda and Shelley were somewhat in a similar situation. Linda's from Berkeley, and a large city, they found that they could work with the city of Berkeley in doing climate action coalitions. There was so much going on that they eventually began to do their own thing with focus on repair cafes, some large ones. There was a lot of interest. They started a technology academy for the kids who had been kicked out of school, collaborated with the university students. They found that they wanted to focus on education and training. Shelley's from a similar situation in Fayetteville where there's a lot going on, and they're finding that working with collaboration is really helpful. Leslie is from a transition group, but at one time they were active, although there were very few of them, and they were very active, but as time went on, then more and more people left. She had to leave. Their area where they were living was experiencing a lot of violence and difficulty. She wishes that they had had more training. That's something they could have gotten from Transition US. Christina in the Catskills is working in a different situation where there's a lot of little villages. She's working to try to create safe havens in the village with places for people to gather. They did things like shifting street lights to LEDs, trying to approach them through money considerations because it's a very conservative area. The takeaways were we needed to expand membership in our groups. We needed to model the way forward and also look for opportunities to collaborate with the city and with other groups. Anyone want to add anything?
Looks like John just said in the chat, regular regional, whoops, I lost it. Regular regional conferences and workshops will be valuable.
Mm. Well, another thing that people said was that it's just been so difficult with these groups because so much of our work is social, and not being able to meet during the time of COVID makes it really difficult.
Thank you. Anyone from group 4 want to read out?
Chad, Conrad, Rua, and William.
That's all right. I'll take that. I was the note taker. So basically, I'll try to give a little rundown here. We talked about how important it is growing food on a small scale, a very local focus on being able to, feed ourselves. Having a lot of community festivals are important, really celebrations. trying to focus on not making it all, hard work, but also celebrating the land and what we have. Trying to inspire people into, thinking transition, how to change the narrative was something we talked about a lot, change the paradigm, how to make people realize that, indigenous views are not, barbaric or backwards, but there's something we did for many years, and somehow to show it is very powerful. How do we, change the narrative of society is important. Adapting to your community, wherever you live, to make adapt to that rather than force feeding a view. Collaborating is key with a lot of people. Rua mentioned libraries, very key. Senior center, and how do you want to be meaningful in the community? Have a lot of meaning within the community. Again, we talk about seasonal celebrations, indigenous worldview, caring of the earth. To do everything, keeping your community small enough to be able to care for it. That's important, not to keep everything large. And it would be great if these initiative groups and the CDC could really help us facilitating communication between the areas. We all talk about it's important to have regional hubs and groups there, keeping the communication open between the areas, networking of groups, disseminating information. The national newsletter would be great. Conrad mentioned high value short videos that are inspirational, easily shareable. Value of connecting initiatives. That when sometimes these initiatives get too much within themselves, you kind of lose spark a little bit. So it's important to know what other people are doing, and to make sure you involve your groups in training. I talked about maybe even every group sending minutes to the to some kind of local area that everyone could send your meeting minutes to one place and everyone could access them. So I think it's very important to have regional groups as well. And my focus a lot was, how do we get all these embers and blow on them to make them into a fire? We really need to present a story, very unified story that's very appealing to people, that to know that doing this transition stuff is could be the best of both worlds, that that we're not going to be suffering and dirty and freezing. Again, like I was telling my group, every time you see a movie or anything, they're always look at their suffering. If they lived a few hundred years ago, it was like horrific, barbaric. But to know that we could be part of the land, grow food, and also be very happy doing that. So if anyone wants to add anything from my group, feel free, but that was my notes.
Thank you, Chad. That's great. I love the idea of a unified story. That feels good. Do we have another group, Don? Has everybody read out?
Yep. Group 5 was Jane, Janice, and Suzanne.
Hey, Janice took notes. Thank you, Janice.
So we're all in different places, as you might imagine, even with 3 people. In the groups are in different places. One is a really developed group over time, since 2006, I think. And it has a regional hub. That's Suzanne's group. They've done 10 community gardens, I think, in their community. And Jane is starting a group from 2018, and they're doing a virtual gardening class through the library, and they're finding that very successful. And their aspiration is to expand the community gardening into the community more. And so she asked Suzanne for maybe some contacts to talk about how they might do that. Suzanne is like, in her group, they're just talking a lot about what to do next. And so they haven't formulated really their ideas. Here in Fort Collins, we need to do a reset and probably get maybe some students. We've been working on a hub because at one point we did a whole group brainstorming in the hub was really important. So we started our hub last 2 years ago, maybe. And so we're thinking that we could expand by getting students to come and learn skills in our hub and meet, and maybe do a project eventually on community-supported entrepreneurship. So those are different kinds of visions. I also think that we could do stuff on climate adaptation and emergency planning. So the takeaways for what the larger hubs and Transition US and the working groups could help with would be to assist with instruction maybe on using media, social media, and all of us really kind of wanted that. We were in different places with that whole outreach thing. And then redoing or setting up for us, setting up a website, because our Ning site has gotten kind of shut. Nobody's using it for social media. Then I think Transition, no, it's Local 2020 is doing a local food challenge and how to eat in season and how to eat locally. They're educating people. And so another thing besides the social media and the tech stuff that it could be useful might be a community of practice among transition initiatives, or mentoring, one-on-one mentoring. If the community of practice started, then Jane suggested that she would like that to be specific and focused. And I don't know that Suzanne, I think Suzanne might have mentioned her need for some mentoring. Is that what you said, Suzanne? I can't remember. I can't hear you.
You're muted, Suzanne.
Yeah, thank you. Mentoring in several different areas. But I also want to clarify that the local challenge, eating challenge, is actually born out of our hub, the Sailor Sea hub, where we have 8 or 10 different transitions. And but we're also introducing it, to Port Townsend hopefully next year. So it's an upcoming project that we're working on now.
Okay.
And my idea about the community of practice being specific would be like maybe there would be one specifically on community gardens.
So we are going to, these are all wonderful suggestions. I wish that we had time for an open discussion. I'd like to invite any, a 1 to 2 sentence feedback for the closing round from anybody who hasn't had a chance to speak. What is one takeaway that you're going to take from the discussion tonight? So I really, for me personally, one thing that I want to take away that I hadn't considered is what was just discussed with the community assistant entrepreneurship. My brain has been there and I have not taken initiative on that in Milwaukee, but I would love to get together with a group to brainstorm around that.
Count me in.
Cool.
I've suggested that we use the chat to indicate we'd like to have a final word. I get to go facilitate, but my final word is that this idea of regional hubs and the necessary energy and commitment to do that, if we could start more regional hubs where we are, I think it would help all the initiatives in that region quite a lot. And I really appreciate all the great ideas that have come up. I'm glad we've recorded this and we have all the notes. So he's back, thanks.
All right, anybody else want to talk about, who hasn't had a chance to speak, want to talk about what your takeaway might be? All right.
Well, I'll speak. I want to thank you guys. My takeaway is I'm feeling optimistic, and I think this is a time of change. And I do like the idea of regional hubs and just kind of connect everyone closer together, because I do feel there are many more people that think the way we do than people realize, and just to connecting them together is very important. So thank you.
Yeah, I put mine in the chat, but I'll just repeat it as just how very valuable it is to be having conversations throughout the national network and international networks. It's one thing to kind of know that you're part of this wider group, this larger group in the abstract, and it's something completely different to be having conversations with, you know, with folks all over the place all at once. And I've had a similar reaction, you know, doing international calls. It's just wonderful, and thank you so much for organizing it, everybody. Peace back.
Shelley's in the stack. Why don't you go for it, Shelley? But you're muted. We can't hear you.
I would like to thank Leslie for something that she said in our breakout room when she's talking about her group, which was very small, but she was talking to this professor who really appreciated that they did everything out in public, that they were trying all these different things, their successes and their failures, and they were really doing stuff, talking to people about their community gardens. She had a garden in her yard, and she talked to people about it. She used it as a chance to help to inform people about how to garden, and I just appreciated that that approach. I'd like to thank her for saying that.
So it sounds like there's time for one more comment or takeaway, and then we're going to move over to Don, and he's going to talk about things coming up. Going once, going twice. Over to you, Don.
Yeah, so thank you everybody for being here. I think Jessica talked earlier in this meeting about what I've been calling the first wave of transition in the US, which was that period from 2008 to 2012, where we saw this explosive growth in transition initiatives all over the country. And I think that had a lot to do with the books Rob Hopkins was writing and the talks he was giving and the films Transition Network was making. And I think we're at the beginning of a second wave. I think, with these things like the Collaborative Design Council and national working groups, regional hubs, this national organizing framework, we're putting ourselves in the right position for a second wave of transition to happen here in the US. And I think it will be because of us really coming together as a movement, maybe as we haven't in the past. So thank you for all your ideas about how we can better do that. I just wanted to let you know about a couple things that are coming up. We will be sending an email out soon to all local initiative leaders to, one, update your information for our website, really important, both for local groups, for people to find out about what you're doing or what you have done in the past. We want to both have current activities for active initiatives as well as accomplishments celebrated for what we're calling legacy initiatives. So one thing will be that update. It's also very helpful for us because people can see the breadth of the transition movement through that mapping and through the information that you put on your pages. And the second thing is the National Organizing Framework Phase 1 draft that I put in the chat earlier. We'll want you to take a look at that and give us any feedback before we move to implementation. So keep an eye out for that. And one other thing I wanted to mention is our year-end fundraising campaign, which you may have seen. There was an email that went out on about that last week. We're doing it a little bit different this year. We want to assist local initiatives, regional hubs, and national working groups in running their own year-end fundraising campaigns. So yes, please donate. Please share it with your initiative, with all your friends, put it on Facebook. But also consider doing a year-end fundraiser for your group. And hopefully by the end of this week, we'll have two things for you. One is a guide to running your own year-end fundraising campaign. And the other is an event that we're going to be hosting on December 10th that you can invite all your community members to. It should be a really fun event. We're going to have a great panel with transitioners from all over the country talking about how they're rising to the challenges of our time. We're also going to have a keynote presentation from the founder of Slow Money, Woody Tash, and some other kind of fun celebratory elements. So please do put that on your calendar, and we should have registration info for that later this week. So that's all I had to say. I think Marissa is going to make an announcement about our last National Network Strategy conversation in this series, that we may be doing some more next year. You're muted.
Okay. Got that? Yeah, thanks, Don. So the last of these for the year is on December 22nd. You know, it's not the best timing, but we've been doing these on the same day every month to have a kind of a consistent pattern. But it's on the very important topic of power leadership and healthy movement culture, what that looks like at the local level as well as the national level as we get more organized as a movement, specifically leadership development and power sharing. And power sharing is a lot of the work that Transition US and the Collaborative Design Council are doing right now. And that's also an important piece of work happening at the international level as well. And Don posted in the chat, there's some international strategy calls happening next week, I believe, for the week of December 1st. And it's so inspiring to hear from people across the country, and it's so inspiring to hear from people around the world who are doing transition work. So just encourage y'all to participate if you're interested in meeting international folks. Thanks again, and thanks so much, John and Jessica. I really appreciate you holding the space tonight.
Great seeing everybody.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone. Take care. Happy Thanksgiving.
It was fun.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
You too.